Imagine this. A nation sends its army to fight a group of birds. Soldiers armed with machine guns and thousands of bullets face off against emus, large, flightless birds native to Australia. It sounds like a joke or the plot of a comedy film, but it actually happened. This strange event, known as the Emu War, remains one of the most peculiar conflicts in history. How could birds outsmart a modern army? What led to this bizarre battle? Let's unravel this fascinating story. The Emu War started in 1932, a time when Australia was recovering from economic hardship. While it's easy to laugh at the absurdity of soldiers battling birds, the story begins with real struggles and desperation. Farmers were at their wits' end, crops were being destroyed, and something needed to be done. The government's response? A military intervention. The result? A series of events so strange that they continue to baffle historians and entertain audiences to this day. In the late 1920s and early 1930s, Australia was in crisis. Many soldiers who had returned from World War I were given farmland in Western Australia to restart their lives. However, farming in this region was not easy. The land was tough, the climate was harsh, and resources were scarce. Things got even worse when the Great Depression hit in 1929, causing wheat prices to plummet. Farmers were producing crops they couldn't sell, and many were on the brink of financial ruin. Just when things couldn't get worse, a new problem emerged: emus. These large, fast, and resilient birds typically lived in the dry interior regions of Australia. However, in 1932, around 20,000 emus migrated to the farmland in search of food and water. The birds viewed the farmers' wheat fields as an all-you-can-eat buffet. For the farmers, it was a disaster. The emus not only ate the crops, but also trampled fields and broke fences, allowing rabbits and other pests to invade. Desperate for a solution, farmers turned to the government for help. The response was unexpected. The military was deployed to handle the emu problem. Major GPBW of the Royal Australian Artillery was put in charge of the operation. His team was equipped with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. The mission seemed straightforward: eliminate as many emus as possible to protect the crops. But the emus proved to be a far more formidable opponent than anyone anticipated. The first engagement took place in November 1932. Soldiers found a group of about 1,000 emus near the farming community of Campion. They opened fire, expecting a quick victory. Instead, chaos ensued. The emus scattered in all directions, running at incredible speeds. Only a few birds were killed. The rest escaped into the bush, disappearing before the soldiers could reload. In another attempt, the soldiers set up an ambush near a dam where emus often gathered to drink. When a large group of birds approached, the soldiers started shooting. This time, the machine gun jammed after only a dozen emus were killed. Once again, the majority of the flock escaped unharmed. Major Meredith quickly realized that fighting emus was not like fighting human enemies. The birds were fast, agile, and incredibly resilient. Some emus were reportedly able to keep running even after being shot. Meredith later joked that if the Australian army had troops like the emus, they could conquer the world. Determined to succeed, the military launched a second campaign later in November. This time, they changed their tactics, focusing on ambushing emus at watering holes. While this approach initially seemed more effective, the emus adapted once again. They scattered at the first sign of danger, making it nearly impossible to kill large numbers at once. Over the course of several weeks, the soldiers fired thousands of rounds of ammunition. Despite their efforts, only a few hundred emus were killed. The rest continued to ravage the farmland. By December 1932, the operation was deemed a failure. The government withdrew the military, leaving the farmers to deal with the emus on their own. The Emu War failed for several reasons. First, the military underestimated the emus. These birds were not only fast, but also highly adaptable. They quickly learned to avoid ambushes and evade gunfire. Second, the soldiers' equipment was not suited for the task. Machine guns, designed for stationary targets in war zones, were ineffective against fast-moving birds in open farmland. Additionally, the rough terrain of Western Australia worked in the emu's favor. The birds used the landscape to their advantage, disappearing into bushes and scrub whenever danger approached. The soldiers, on the other hand, struggled to navigate the uneven ground, making it difficult to aim and fire effectively. Finally, the operation lacked proper planning. The military treated the emus like a conventional enemy, failing to account for their unique behavior and environment. This miscalculation turned what should have been a simple pest control operation into a national embarrassment. The failure of the Emu War taught Australia several important lessons. After the military withdrew, the government shifted its approach. Instead of using soldiers, they provided farmers with funding to build better fences. These fences were far more effective at keeping emus out of the fields. The government also introduced a bounty system, encouraging local hunters to help control the emu population. The Emu War also highlighted the limits of military power. It showed that technology and firepower are not always enough to solve a problem, especially when the problem involves nature. Understanding the behavior and environment of the enemy is just as important as having the right tools. Today, the Emu War is remembered as one of the most bizarre episodes in Australian history. It has become a symbol of human folly and a reminder of the power of nature. The story has been retold in books, documentaries, and even video games, cementing its place in popular culture. Despite its humor, the Emu War carries a serious message. It shows the importance of respecting the natural world and approaching challenges with humility and careful planning. The emus, for their part, remain a testament to resilience and adaptability. They not only survived the war, but also became a part of Australian folklore. In the end, the Emu War is more than just a funny story. It's a lesson in how small things can defeat big plans, and how even the most advanced tools can fail without understanding and respect for nature.